Ever get that feeling? You know when you stumble across like a story
Oh, yeah.
that just pulls you in, doesn't let go?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And it's just so atmospheric.
Yes,
So you brought in something like that for us today.
I think so.
A tale set deep in Olympic National Forest.
Yeah, deep in the woods in Washington State.
Right.
A place where the wilderness itself seems to hold secrets.
Ooh, secrets. Okay, I like it.
Yeah, and these disappearances of logging crews,
Yeah.
decades apart, but like with a really eerie similarity.
Okay.
And the source you shared gives us a look at one of these events from a science fiction TV show.
Okay, so this isn't like your typical case file like
Right.
we sometimes look at.
No.
It's more like a self-contained nightmare.
It is.
It's a monster of the week story, but it's so gripping.
Oh, it is.
It makes you think about like really deep primal fears.
Yes.
So let's unpack this eerie event
Okay.
and figure out why it works so well at creeping us out, and hopefully we'll uncover some cool behind-the-scenes stories.
Absolutely.
So are you ready to step into the shadows of these ancient woods?
I am.
Okay, let's do it.
So the story starts with FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully.
Of course.
They're called to investigate the disappearance of a logging crew.
Oh.
But what's really unsettling is that this isn't the first time this has happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a similar disappearance back in 1934.
Oh, wow.
So it casts this ominous shadow over everything they're doing.
So like a cyclical thing, or maybe even...
Yeah, maybe even predestined.
Oh, wow.
Some kind of predestined horror.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So from the get-go, you know, this is not going to be like an easy, straightforward investigation.
No.
So they meet with a U.S. Forest Service employee, Larry Moore.
Yeah,
He seems helpful,
he does.
but maybe a little bit clueless about how serious this really is.
Right.
And then there's Steve Humphreys, the head of security for the logging company,
Right.
who probably has his own agenda going on.
Most likely.
But almost right away, they find evidence of sabotage, like caltrops on the ground,
Yeah.
like a classic eco-terrorist tactic.
Exactly.
So it's almost like the investigation is being blocked from a bunch of different sides.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so at first they think it's just humans messing things up.
Yeah.
But then things take a turn for the weird.
Yes. The abandoned logging camp is completely silent.
Oh, spooky.
Cabins are deserted. The communication equipment is wrecked.
Oh.
Like everyone left in a panic.
Okay.
But then they find a corpse, desiccated,
Desiccated, okay.
cocooned, and hanging from a tree.
Oh, that's so creepy.
And that's when you know this is not just about missing.
Yeah, like this is something else entirely.
Yeah.
And then one of the eco-terrorists, Doug Spinney, is brought in.
Right.
And at first he's a suspect, but then he drops a bombshell.
He tells them about a swarm of deadly insects that come out at night.
So classic horror movie stuff. Like, we're scared of the dark and what's hiding in it.
Exactly.
Okay, so they barricade themselves inside. Keep the lights on.
Ah.
Heart move, right?
Pretty smart.
Like just a basic human instinct.
Absolutely.
But then there's this science twist.
They find an ancient tree,
Okay.
and it has this weird green band in its growth rings.
Interesting.
So Spinney has this theory about a dormant organism being disturbed.
Okay, I'm following you.
Yeah, it's based on dendrochronology.
Dendrochronology, what is that?
It's basically like reading tree rings to learn about the past climate and events.
So like the tree rings tell a story.
Exactly.
So the idea that something could be asleep for centuries in these rings,
Uh-huh.
and then we wake it up by messing with the forest,
Yeah,
that's a great way to make a fantastical threat seem real.
it is.
Like it makes you think about all the hidden stuff in nature.
It does.
And then Humphreys tries to get help.
Yeah, he wants to reach the truck.
Brave, but foolish.
Right, he goes out at night,
Oh no.
and he's killed by the swarm.
So now they know this is serious.
Yes.
They're trapped in this cabin. Their only protection is a single light bulb powered by a generator.
Right.
But the fuel is running out.
Yeah, the fuel's like a ticking clock.
And then Spinney comes up with this plan.
To get more fuel and a Jeep from his colleagues.
But that's so risky.
It is.
Scully and Moore are hesitant.
Of course.
They know if they mess up, they'll be left with no power.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
So we've got this one light bulb keeping them safe.
Right.
And it starts to flicker. Oh no.
Yeah, you could just feel their hope fading.
And then it goes out.
It does.
So they're plunged into darkness.
Total darkness.
And they have to try and reach Moore's truck.
Right.
Blindly stumbling around.
Yeah.
And they find Humphreys' body cocooned.
Gruesome.
So creepy.
Yeah.
But then Spinney comes back.
He does. He's got the Jeep,
Thank goodness.
but he's got bad news.
Oh no.
His colleagues are dead.
Oh, that's terrible.
So they try to escape,
All right.
but they run into more caltrops.
Those darn things.
I know, right?
And then Spinny, he's attacked by the swarm and killed. Yeah.
So now it's just Mulder, Scully, and more.
In the Jeep.
They think they're safe.
Right.
But the bugs get in.
Through the air conditioning vents.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So they're trapped again.
It's a nightmare.
But then a biohazard team shows up.
They do.
They rescue them.
Seemingly because of Mulder's radio transmissions.
But they're taken to a quarantine facility.
In Winthrop, Washington.
Right. So they're safe, but not really free.
Right.
And then Mulder asks about getting rid of the bugs.
Yeah. Like, were the pesticides, the fires enough?
And the answer?
That is not an option.
Chilling.
It is.
Like, this threat is still out there.
Yeah, we don't really know what happened.
So the ending doesn't really tie things up in a nice bow.
It doesn't.
Makes you think.
It does.
So let's go behind the scenes.
Okay.
I love this part.
Me too.
The idea for these ancient insects.
Yeah.
Waking up when we mess with the old growth forests.
Right.
It came from real environmental worries.
Absolutely. In the early 90s, people were really concerned about deforestation.
Okay. What would happen if we disrupted these delicate ecosystems?
Right.
You could almost hear the news stories and debates of the time.
In the episode.
Yeah, definitely.
And this episode is interesting because it's a survival horror story.
Yeah.
A lot of X-Files is about crime scenes or conspiracies.
Right.
But this is just humans versus nature.
Yeah, just raw survival.
And the bugs themselves.
We're so creepy.
How did they do that?
Well, they used tiny rubber balls
Okay.
covered in reflective paint and filmed under black light.
Wow. So low tech.
Yeah, but effective
And they use digital effects too.
to make them even creepier.
And the close-ups.
Oh yeah, those were really scary.
What did they use for those?
Microscopic photography of mites.
Ew, that's so gross.
I know, but it worked.
It did.
Yeah.
So filming this must have been intense.
Oh yeah, they filmed in the forests around Vancouver,
Beautiful,
but damp and cold.
all right.
And it was constantly raining.
And the terrain was tough.
Yeah, very uneven.
So it was physically demanding.
One of the most demanding shoots of the season.
Wow.
You can almost feel the crew's discomfort in the episode.
Okay, so get this.
Okay.
The original ending was much darker.
Oh yeah.
Mulder and Scully were going to die.
No way.
Yeah, nature was going to win.
Wow.
The producers thought that was too bleak.
They wanted a little bit of hope.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So that original ending would have been a powerful message.
About the dangers of messing with nature.
Right.
And this is one of the first X-Files episodes to really focus on that.
Right, like a warning about our impact on the planet.
Exactly.
It's also interesting that the bugs were supposed to be more aggressive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but because of the budget and the special effects, they had to make them slower. And I think that made them scarier.
Yeah, it did.
Like this slow, creeping terror
Totally.
that you can't escape.
Right.
So this episode, Darkness Falls, is one of Chris Carter's favorites.
From the first season.
Really?
Yeah, he loved the atmosphere, the tension, the horror elements.
And this episode is kind of like a spiritual predecessor to another episode
Detour.
from season 5.
Yeah, it's got the same themes.
Isolated forest, unseen threats, survival.
Humans against nature.
Exactly.
It seems like the show kept coming back to this fear of the wilderness.
Right, what's lurking out there in the dark.
Yeah, and what happens when we go too far?
And this episode won an award.
An Environmental Media Award in 1994.
Wow.
Even though Chris Carter said it wasn't meant to be an environmental message.
That's so interesting.
It is like the story just resonated with people.
And it was adapted into a young adult novel.
In 1995,
So people really liked this story.
they did.
They filmed it in Lynn Valley, British Columbia.
A beautiful place.
But the weather was awful.
Yeah, the director and the first assistant director even had a big fight about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a tough shoot.
And you know, Jason Becky,
Larry Moore.
yeah, he was actually childhood friends with David Duchovny.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know, and he even encouraged Duchovny to become an actor.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of a nice little behind-the-scenes story.
It is.
So we've got this scary story about nature
Yeah.
and all these behind-the-scenes struggles.
And it makes you think.
What does it say about our fear of the unknown
And the power of nature.
and the hard work that goes into making great stories?
Definitely.
Makes you appreciate it all.
It does.
Thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
And thank you for bringing this episode to light.
Until next time,
See you then.
keep looking into the shadows.
I will.